gravity and the sun and some about the solar system and planets last week. So I'm going to do a quick review to refresh everybody's memory. You know, a few of you guys weren't here some of these days. So what is the sun? What is it? Isa. It is a star. Good job. Is the sun also a planet? Yes or no? Julia? No, it is not a planet. It's just a star. What keeps us from floating away from the Earth? Okay. Gravity. Good job. So what would happen, I think we watched a video on this last week, what would happen if the sun either burned out or disappeared? What would happen to us on Earth? Mason? We would freeze. You're correct. You're right. Yeah, that was my next question. So how long does it take from light from the sun to get to Earth? 8 minutes. Oh. Yes, I guess I am. Yes, so Bart said 8 minutes, or yeah, you said 8 minutes, so that's true. So we had talked about that and said, well, we'd have 8 minutes if the sun burned out to freeze because the rays would keep coming until they didn't and we got freeze. All right, so we're going to watch a couple videos today about a little bit more in depth about why the moon orbits the Earth, which we've learned about, but we don't really know exactly why yet. And then we're going to watch another one about why the planets orbit the sun, okay? So, Olivia, can you get the lights for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, it's a little different today. You'll still be able to watch it. It's just going to look different because I've got to do it from my phone. Just a minute to adjust. We watched this first one last week. She's good. Also, just make sure you're being pretty quiet because I don't have it connected to the speaker, so it's just for my phone. It is loud. I walked back there earlier, Olivia, so you guys should be able to hear it. So just make sure you're not like making a bunch of noise moving around. Then, yeah, it should.
Just hanging out with Mr. Moon. If you're wondering why he looks a little green, it's because he's a little jealous. We spend an awful lot of time talking about the sun and what a star is, and very little time on this guy. So cheer up, Mr. Moon. Today's episode is all about you. To be more specific, today's episode is all about orbits. Lots of things in space are in orbit, but let's just start by talking about things that orbit the Earth. And those are two things in particular: artificial satellites, which are made by people, and the moon. You should remember that an orbit is the path that
So what did they say the two things were that orbit Earth? Bentley? Yeah. So satellites, I think some of you guys drew satellites on your pictures we made last week. So satellites, we'll probably talk more in depth about how they work later on. But satellites and the moon orbit Earth.
follows around another object. Like how the Earth travels around the sun, the moon orbits the Earth in a similar way. You should also remember a little thing called gravity. Gravity is a force or the natural pull of objects toward each other. It's the thing that keeps you on Earth. But doesn't that make you wonder why gravity doesn't just pull things out of their orbit? I mean, if gravity pulls things toward each other, then why don't things that orbit the Earth crash into the Earth? Before we can answer that question, we should learn a little bit more about the things that orbit our planet and the paths they take around it. Earth has only one moon. I'm sure you've seen it. It's covered in huge craters that were formed by asteroids hitting it, and great plains that were left in shape by the lava.
So what did they say? How was the moon formed? Julia? By asteroids hitting it long, long, long ago.
Also by the Earth. It's a piece of the Earth.
That lets float on its surface. We think the moon formed billions of years ago when chunks of the Earth were blasted into space after a planet-sized object hit it. These pieces of Earth then came together to form our moon. Neat, right? Now it takes the moon about 27 days to fully orbit the Earth.
How many days did they say it took to fully orbit the Earth? Amari? 27 days. So how many days do we typically have in a month? usually? Brody?
30.
Yeah, about February we have 28 or 29 on leap year, and then other months it's always 30 or 31. So it's close to a normal month, but a little bit less than a typical month would be on Earth.
Moon is not the only thing that orbits our planet, but it is Earth's only natural satellite. A satellite is just a body that orbits a planet-like object, or an asteroid. Plenty of human-made or artificial satellites orbit our planet too. Probably the most famous artificial satellite is the International Space Station, or ISS. The space station is the biggest object ever flown in space. Lots of countries, including the United States, Russia, Japan, and Canada, built this satellite where astronauts live and perform scientific experiments in near weightless conditions.
So did they say that people lived on the International Space Station?
Yeah.
And do you remember what they do on there?
National
What'd you say?
experiment.
Yep. So, and they also said people from different countries, so it's not just American astronauts, but people from all over the
And
world
Japan.
use it.
I want to learn Japanese.
In Japan. So they
They
all work
built it
together because it's not like it just it's trying to give us information about America. It orbits the entire Earth, so it can tell us about the entire Earth and all the continents.
The ISS even has a gym on it. The ISS moves pretty fast, completing 16 orbits around our planet every day. And it's not the only artificial satellite up there. There are thousands of different satellites traveling around Earth. Some of them help us forecast weather, some monitor areas of drought, and some send signals to our phones and TV.
All right, so I just want to reiterate what the satellites do up there. So forecast weather. What does forecast mean? Forecasting the weather. Bart? Like what? Yeah, it kind of tells us. Like the news tells us. So forecast kind of means to predict. It tells us before. For means before. So before the weather comes, they can use the satellites to tell. Like right now, that a hurricane is on its way to Florida. Sorry, my phone went off.
Zeta.
Yes, Zeta's on her way.
Oh.
And then the second one is to monitor drought. What does a drought mean? Amelia, do you know what a drought is? Yeah, we don't really have many of those. Too many around here. Jacob, what's a drought?
It's whenever all the water goes out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, drought is mainly in, other states I'm sure, but in California they have droughts a lot. We live by the water, so and it rains a lot here, but a drought is like when it doesn't rain for a long period of time and it's really, really dry. People have to save water and stuff, so they can also predict when the water, when it won't rain for a long time. Aiden, your question?
Pokemon droughts happen a lot.
Oh, really?
And some firefights.
And what?
Good to know. In Pokemon, he
Some
said.
firefights.
And to communicate with devices. So that's like our cell phones. Our cell phones can ping off of there.
The computers.
Computers, anything else you can think of? Olivia, what'd you say?
Tablet.
Your phone.
My phone. Yeah, Amari.
Xbox.
Xbox.
Watches.
Yeah, so all the
Switch.
electricity, all the things all the big poles that, go through, you can see when you're driving on the road. Those things have little satellites that go back and forth, and we can't see it, but it pings. They say it pings. The signals go back and forth as it orbits the Earth. So those are the three things that the satellites do for us and for everybody
Can I
around the world.
communicate with the TV? Yeah.
I don't know. I think so, probably.
That's
Electricity,
it.
somehow, yeah. It would
It's
go all the way
DirecTV.
through.
It's in the.
Yeah,
They
they used
have
to have, right, you're right.
It's in
They
the
don't have
TV.
satellite TV as much anymore, but they used to have, like when I was a kid, we had those big satellites that you would put on top of your house, and it's DirecTV used to be a satellite,
Oh yeah.
and it would,
Now there's Roku.
yeah. Now it's changed, but if you've seen those little satellites on people's houses, that's usually from TV rather
Or
than.
the solar stuff.
Do you have one more question, Olivia?
No, I actually have something I would like to say.
Okay, what?
The solar system,
Panels.
the solar panel things, they also can communicate with the projector.
Yes, you're right. And we talked about solar panels a little bit last week.
So, thanks for the SpongeBob satellites. Anyway, if all of these things are traveling around our planet and Earth's gravity is constantly pulling things toward it, then why isn't the Earth's surface full of fallen satellites? Or chunks of moon, for that matter? I think a visual would really help here. Let's have our moon buddy show us exactly how he stays in space. Welcome back. The Mr. Moon, two things determine the orbit of a satellite, whether it's an artificial satellite like the ISS, or if it's natural like the Moon. The first factor is the gravitational pull of the Earth, which pulls things towards the center of the Earth. The second factor is the speed and
All right, what was that word they just used? Why the planets? Why the moon orbits the Earth? Amelia? Yep, the gravitational pull, and we talked about that last week with the sun. You guys wrote something about it. So the gravitational pull is what pulls it towards the Earth. But let's see why.
direction or the velocity at which the object is moving. If these forces are balanced, then the satellite remains in stable orbit around the Earth. This delicate balance is super important. Why? Well, the balance between an object's velocity and the Earth's gravitational pull is the cause that produces the effect of the object remaining in orbit. If the moon's speed was much faster, it would escape the Earth's gravity and just fly off into space. But if the moon's speed was much slower, the Earth's gravity would be able to pull it down to Earth. And the orbits of artificial satellites work the same way, even though they're located closer to the Earth than the moon. As long as they move fast enough, Earth's gravity won't be strong enough to pull those satellites down to Earth. So technically, the moon and other satellites are always falling towards the Earth, but they're also moving so fast that they don't hit it. Now you know why things that orbit the Earth don't crash into the Earth. If the moon and all those artificial satellites maintain a certain velocity, not too slow and not too fast, they'll avoid losing their battle against our planet's gravitational pull. Very impressive, Mr. Moon. Take a bow.
Cool.
Nope, we're not allowed to anymore.
So yeah, at the end there, she was talking about the velocity and how the moon orbits the Earth, and like she said, so if it started spinning a lot faster than it does now, it would just fly off into space, and we wouldn't have a moon anymore. Or if it's slowed down because of the gravitational pull, the Earth is trying to pull the moon towards it all the time, but it's spinning fast enough that it can't get sucked in. But if it started to slow down, it would get sucked in, just like we get sucked to the ground because of gravity. The moon would get sucked into the Earth. Yes, Ethan.
And if it went too slow, I'd be like, give me some space.
Leave me alone.
Like, come on, outer space, dude.
All right, so let's see here. Oh. All right, so what were the two things they talked about at the beginning that orbit the Earth? Bella.
The solar panel and the moon.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So the satellites, yeah, they have the big solar panels on them, but they're technically called satellites when they're in space. And the moon, yes. All right, let's see. Do you remember how many days does it take the moon to orbit around the Earth? Kylie?
25 days.
Oh, close. Mason?
27.
27 days. Yep. So that's like when, you know how we see a full moon and then it slowly, you get the crescent moon and then sometimes you can barely see it and then it starts growing again. So that whole process is what they're talking about, and that takes 27 days for it to go, all the way from the little tiny, I can't remember what it's actually called when it's at the smallest, but then the full moon is what we get about every
Crescent?
single day. Yeah, I know it's a crescent, but I think it's,
This is like
The
the
cross?
crescent.
And sometimes
No.
it's orange.
yeah, sometimes,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
we'll talk about that a little bit
Yeah,
tomorrow.
that's I already did an investigation. I already know that.
That's the harvest moon.
All right,
Grandpa
let me
actually-
open this one. Sorry, I know it's a little different today.
Yeah, it is the moon.
Why can't we do it on the computer?
What'd you say?
Why can't we do it on the computer?
It's because the school Wi-Fi blocks YouTube,
Oh, wait, that was a YouTube.
and yeah. So, all right, now we're gonna talk about the sun. I'm
Oh,
sorry, it's not so. Can y'all still hear from like the back? Were you able to hear?
Yeah.
It sounds like it, 'cause you guys are answering. So. All right.
How long is this?
Just
You already know how objects like the moon and artificial satellites manage to orbit the Earth. But there's all kinds of stuff up there orbiting other stuff that's not the Earth. So, how do those orbits in space work? Are they the same as here at home, or different? Or maybe both? Now, as much as I enjoy our little chats, unfortunately, I don't have the time to talk about every single object in space that orbits something else and explain how their orbits work. So how about we just go over a few of the important kinds of orbits instead? Let's begin with what we're most familiar with and look at how and why Earth orbits the sun. The sun may just be a medium
so what were the other things that she just mentioned that orbit the sun other than planet Earth? Brody?
Asteroids and comets.
Yeah, asteroids and comets.
And 7 other planets.
Would you say it
And
is?
7 other planets.
Yeah, you're right, and the 7 other planets. So the planets, asteroids, and comets are what orbit the sun because we know that the sun is the center of our solar system.
Planet orbits the sun sort of the same way that the moon or artificial satellites orbit the Earth. It travels in a nearly circular path around the star, completing the whole trip every 365 days. But why do we orbit the sun and not the other way around? Well, lighter objects tend to orbit heavier ones, and the sun is the heaviest object in our solar system. It's about 1,000 times heavier than Jupiter, our largest planet, and is certainly heavier than Earth. So the Earth, the lighter object in this scenario, is easily drawn towards the larger object, the sun, by its intense force of gravity. As we learned earlier, though, the Earth doesn't totally get sucked into the sun because it's moving fast enough around it to avoid that very hot and probably very horrible fate. That's why the Earth.
Sorry it keeps getting blurry, you guys. You guys are being so nice about it, though. But, so she just said the same thing. So just like we talked about the moon orbits the Earth at, like, the perfect speed, it's the same thing with us and the other 7 planets around us. So same thing would happen. If we started speeding up really, really fast, we would fly off our orbit and fly out into space. But if we slowed down, we would get sucked into the moon. Because same thing. We talked about that yesterday with gravity. The bigger the object is what attracts everything to that object. The smaller the object, it moves towards that. Jackson, what's your question?
So does the moon and the Earth have to travel at the same speed to orbit?
No, not necessarily, because some of the planets like move really, really slow, but it just depends on their size and where they're at in space. So everything right now is like perfect, like because if not, those us and the other 7 planets would fly off. But the moon moves at a perfect speed around us, and then we move with the moon around the sun at the perfect speed. Even though it's different, some planets their years are like thousands of days long, and it takes them a really long time to get around the sun. And then others, like us, it takes 1 year, which is 365 days, to get all the way around the sun. Yes, Hayden.
Is one of the planets you talked about that goes really slow, the closest one to the sun? It's going slow. What's the attraction?
That's really fast.
We'll look later. That's what me and Miss Rushing were talking about that last week. Like on my watch, I had the little thing, and if I twist it, it shows all the planets moving. So later on, we'll look up like a time lapse, and it'll show you which ones move faster and then which ones move really, really slow. Yes.
If Earth flies off, would the moon still orbit it?
Don't think so. I don't know. I mean, that's not going to happen, like we've talked about, but that's a good question. We'll have to see.
Earth plus the other planets and all kinds of space rocks orbit around the sun. Okay, let's zoom out a little more. Why does our whole galaxy orbit a black hole? What? You didn't know? Well, it's true, but it's nothing to be spooked out about. Let's start by defining some of those terms. You know what the sun is, but what's a galaxy? And what's a black hole? A galaxy is a group of stars, gas, and dust bound together by gravity. Our sun is just one of billions of stars that are hanging out together in what scientists call the Milky Way galaxy. If it shares its name with a chocolate bar, you know it's got to be a good galaxy. And a black hole is an object that has a gravitational pull stronger than anything else in space. It's so strong, even light can't escape it. That's why they say it's black. Think of it like a bottomless pit swallowing up whatever other objects get near it. Our Milky Way galaxy has a black hole at its center. But don't forget, luckily, Earth is located thousands and thousands of light years away from this black hole. So we won't be swallowed up by it. But we are close enough so that the mass of stars, planets, dust, and gas inside of our galaxy, combined with the ginormous mass of this black hole, holds us in our orbit. So for us here on Earth, the black hole is actually a good thing. Okay, so bringing things back to our solar system, you know why everything in it orbits our sun. But does everything orbit it in the same way? Not so much. Let's visit one of our dwarf planets, which has a super odd orbit, at least when compared to the other planets.
Pluto? Yeah.
The 8 main planets tend to orbit the sun in a relatively circular way on the same imaginary plane, or level. But the orbit of the dwarf planet Pluto is weird because not only is it off-center from the sun, but it's also not on the same plane.
So when I was a kid and I learned about the planets, Pluto was part, we actually had 9 planets because Pluto does orbit the sun. But the reason they took it off is because technically, see the picture how its axis is off? We all are on the same plane. Sorry, I don't know why. But Pluto's right here, and it's a lot smaller. It's called a dwarf planet because that means it's like a really tiny planet. But see how it's crooked almost, and it orbits this way? Sorry, this is about to go off. So that's why I guess all the scientists got together and decided that because it's not on our plane like the rest of us and the other 7 planets, that they would just call it a dwarf planet, and they took it out. And so you guys learned that there's 8 planets, whereas before, when they first discovered it, they said it technically is a planet, but now they just kind of downgraded it.
Pluto is one of my favorite planets.
I know, Pluto was my favorite planet too, and then they just
Other than
took it away.
Mars.
Yes, Jackson.
Planets orbit the sun like it's Saturn.
Yeah, you're right. They do look. It does look like Saturn. The rings around it. Yeah.
Except one ring.
Depending on where it is on its path around the sun, it can be on a higher or lower level than the other 8 planets. Pluto, you rebel. So, why does it do that? Well, while orbiting the sun, Pluto passes through the orbital path of another planet. Because of its strange orbital path, Pluto is actually sometimes closer to the sun than Neptune is. It actually crosses Neptune's orbit. When this happens, Neptune's gravitational pull forces Pluto into a lower orbit for a short period before it swings back into its higher orbit. So gravity has a lot to do with Pluto's odd orbit, and it's proof that not everything in our solar system orbits the sun in the same way. Let's bring this back to our big question. How do other orbits in space work? Well, they work a lot like things that do orbit the Earth, and also they sometimes don't. Each object in space follows orbital patterns that we can sometimes predict, but there are always oddballs out there that keep us on our toes. So, don't ever let me catch you saying space is boring.
Alright. Thank you. Okay, so what were the 2 things that we learned about with the sun that also orbit the sun other than Earth? Olivia?
Pluto.
Yes, but it was at the beginning they talked about it's not a planet. Things other
It
than
is
the
a
planet.
dwarf planet.
Yes, it is a dwarf planet. But there was another 2 things that they said orbited the sun that weren't planets. Jackson, you remember what they were? Asteroids and comets? Yes, sir. Good job. And what have we learned about what is the heaviest object in our solar system? Amari? The sun. And why do we not crash into the sun? Why do we not get sucked into the sun? Bart? Yeah, we are far enough away. What was that word they used? Do you remember, Brody? Does anybody else know? Haley, do you know the word? Yeah, the gravitational pull. Aiden, do you know that word that I'm thinking of?
And also basically another way, because gravity is pulling Earth into the same thing. It's all pushing down. It can't go this way because gravitational pull is not gravitational pull. Gravity is pulling it this way.
Right. So the word I'm looking for is velocity. That's the word that means where it goes to perfect speed in order to get on a routine in our solar system and orbit the Earth. And the moon orbit the Earth, and the Earth orbit the sun, so it doesn't get sucked in. So velocity is the word that means the perfect speed. Yep, velocity. Cool. All right. You guys have been waiting, so we are going to do our Kahoot. Olivia, will you mask up and go turn on the light for me? Oh, yeah. Hold on just a second, because I do want to show you one more picture. You can turn on the light, though, Olivia. Yeah. So this is a picture of the Earth, the moon orbiting around the Earth, and the Earth orbiting around the sun. So tomorrow we're going to make little models. I know you guys, some of y'all saw me making them in the back. But we're going to make a model that'll show you how the moon orbits around the Earth, and then you can move the Earth and the moon together all the way around the sun.
Teachers, please excuse the interruption, but Ms. Weeks' classes are canceled for the rest of the day. Ms. Weeks' classes are canceled for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Okay, hold on just a second. Will you close your laptops for now? We're going to move in just a minute, but not just. Do you have a question though, Alethea? Okay, we'll figure it out. Will you close yours, Cooper? So I just wanted to show you, it's kind of hard to explain. It will be a lot easier when we make our models tomorrow. But we always see the same side of the moon. The moon does also spin, but the way that it spins, like I said, it'll be easier to explain tomorrow. It's spinning, but the way we're spinning too, it's always facing us. So we always see the same side of the moon. If we stop spinning, we would be able to see the back of the moon and the sides of the moon, but we don't because the way that it spins, the way that we spin, we always are constantly looking at it as it's going around our moon. So people say sometimes the man on the moon, sometimes you can see, like, if you look at the moon, it kind of looks like there's a face on the moon. But we always see the same side. We've never seen the back side of the moon except for with satellites, pictures, and things like that. Astronauts. Yes, Julia? Yeah, astronauts. Have been on the moon. And then, the model will, like I said, we'll show you tomorrow. So, moon spinning around the Earth, and then the Earth spins around the sun with all the other planets. Who? Mario. Alright, is there any more questions before we get our Kahoot started? Jake? How is space so big? That's a good question. It just is. Alright, so we talked about it before. Hold on just a second. I haven't told anybody to move yet or get on. Whoever you're to, wherever it says to Aiden, to someone else's desk, you can go ahead and push in your chair and go to whoever's desk. And then whoever has the laptop, you just log in on your account. Okay. And like normal, y'all know Classly and Kahoot. Okay. Everybody has a mask on, correct?
Yes.
All right. Okay, yeah.
You can name your team the Libras.
Alright, class. Okay, real quick, let me review. We talked a little bit earlier about how you're gonna do your names and everything. Here's a class code, a reminder for the names. You're gonna put one person's number, and you're gonna do your combination name, and then the other person's number at the end, okay? Then we'll know you're ready when your names come up here and are shown. That's fine. We've got a couple minutes. We're not gonna go without anybody. We'll wait for you. Got it? Is yours working? They're at least letting you sign in? Perfect. Alright, so I can tell here we have Brody and Bentley. I can tell we have Jacob and Bart. Nice. Alright, I'm gonna come around and see what other names. Does anybody need help making their combination name? Mooper? I like it.
If your name is Grayson,
Alright, let's do Camille. Or Miley. Camellia, I like that. Yeah. So it'd be like K and then O. Yeah, I know, that's what I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Do you still need another one? Okay. That's okay, I think because they didn't plug them in last time for us. Like, they should have. Do y'all know your name? Cool. I'm gonna shut this so when you switch.
You're Arden.
Be very gentle with her.
That's okay.
Well, actually, don't you know your name? You could use your whole name. It's like Isabella, like. No, I mean like Alabella or Olivia or something like that. It's Olivia.
That sounds like a great
So you'll put what's her name? Alright, we're gonna pick one. Julia, I like that. Arden. That's just your name now. It has to be Lisa Via. Yeah, do ISAVIA. That sounds cool. Alright, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
It says up there.
Alright, so 2 more people to go.
How do we spell it? It says
Yeah, you're right. Right. Alright, class. I will know you're ready when whoever is not sitting in the chair is squatting down next to the computer, and that means you're ready to go. Okay, Bella, you're good. If you have a dress on, that's, you can just kind of squat like this, okay? Alright, that means you should be squatted and ready. Alright, we have 8, so everybody should be ready. And with class. Alright, I need it quiet before we start, okay? It should be 9. Okay. Oh, you're right, we have 18 now, yeah. Sorry. Bella, will you do me a favor though and go turn off one set of lights, just one for the front?
You can do, no, I'm signing in since a bunch
Olivia, I'll know you're ready if you're squatted like everybody.
Their
Mason,
first
I'll know you're
computer
ready if
didn't
you're
work, so
squatted.
they're like still trying to load to the second one.
What did you say? I'm sorry.
They're getting into the second computer, that's why it's slower.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
Mason,
pretty sure
are you
that's
ready?
But they're already
Yeah, I
trying.
was gonna say, if you want to get on this side of Cooper, just so you. Okay. The questions will be on the board, but I'm just saying if you want to stand on that side of him, you can. But you don't have to, whichever side is.
Can we both squat? Can we both squat in case?
No, I mean, because somebody needs to be in a chair so we know who's going to be. You'll both get a chance to, remember we're going to swap.
Can one be like right here? Can one be
I guess. Well, push the chair all the way in. But you still need to be there. And then you'll just switch, okay?
I'm squatting.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So you
Yeah. No, that doesn't work at all. Alright, can everybody give me 5? I only see. Okay. rules one more time just so you remember what we're going to do. Whoever's sitting in the seat is going to be the one that actually touches the answer. Every time the question comes up, you're going to quietly whisper to your neighbor and discuss the answer. You have to agree on it. Can't just go ahead and pick right away. Even if you know it, make sure you check with your partner and that your partner agrees with you, okay? And then whoever's in the seat, you're going to actually push the button. When you swap, whoever is in the seat then will push the button. So each time you'll go back and forth. Jackson, you have a question?
Are these Halloween questions?
No, these are questions about a little bit about the review we learned about last week with gravity and then what we learned about today in the videos.
It just looks like it since it's October and it's almost Halloween.
Yeah, you're right. Put the little Halloween jack-o'-lanterns in there.
Like on Prodigy. There's
Yeah, it's Prodigy like that too.
there's a new candy guy.
Is theirs coming up? Still not?
Well, you have to go to until
Alright, class.
Yes.
Alright, since we're waiting a little bit because of theirs, I don't want you discussing anything else right now except for what we learned today or some facts you remember about gravity. So I would do a little review. I asked a couple questions earlier. Review what I said.
With each other.
With each other. Just your partner.
I'm getting you up on this one just in case that doesn't work. Go ahead and go off of that one because that one's going to give us a problem the whole time.
Okay, I don't know if I can unless I just hold down the power button.
Work better.
Olivia. I have confidence. Alright. Give me 5. Give me 4. Give me 2. Alright, since we're waiting for Olivia and Alethea and Selena's computer to load, which hopefully it will soon, we're just gonna do a couple true and false questions. And I'll just do some about like some fun things. So raise your hand if you want to answer. Do not blurt out the answer. Is it working, you said?
It's getting in class link.
Oh, okay. Alright, then I'll just do it really quick. So true or false? Halloween is on Sunday, this Sunday. True or false? Kylie?
False here.
False.
False here.
Ah,
True here.
Like
or
that.
something like that.
yeah, Miss Rushing said it. So if the answer is false, you go like this. If the answer is true, you can go like this. Okay? This is false. And this is true. Alright, so true or false? If the Earth stopped spinning, we would still stay on the planet. If the Earth just stopped spinning, we would still all just stay on the planet. The answer is false. If the Earth stopped spinning, we would fly off.
This is false, right?
Yeah, this is false. Is it letting you on right now? Are you signing in?
They are.
Alright, so everybody will go ahead and get, if you're standing, you should be squatting right next to your partner. If you have a dress on, yeah, you can just kind of bend down. So, Mason, squat down. Selena, squat down beside Alethea, please. And Kylie, are you in a dress? Yeah, you can just If you, yeah, you can stand behind her as long as Aiden and them can see.
Yeah, we can see.
They're not up. Wait till it says 9.
Oh, it could be it's Alicia.
Alright, and hey guys, we're not gonna start until everybody's showing me that they're ready. They're quiet, they have their mask on, and they're not talking at all. And then I will know we're ready. Even if you have to be patient for another 30 seconds. Okay, I still am waiting until everybody's either squatting, Mason, you're not wearing your dress. Alright. And we've played these before, we know. Of course you can get excited if you're winning, but we're not gonna be rude to anybody. We're not gonna yell and scream. You can lightly cheer, but we're not gonna get too crazy, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Alright, thank you. Alright. What are two things that orbit the Earth? Olivia, you're gonna have to bring your volume down a little bit. I know you like to talk loud, but you don't switch just yet. Just wait till the answer's good. Alright, now, so after the leaderboard comes up, that's when you'll switch seats. So everybody switch. So Lakey out, Selena will sit now.
Okay.
And then, yeah, you just, get down on that side now, okay? Alright? Alright, we're not going to start until everybody's sitting. I know we're going to have to get used to it first. So if you're standing, you should be squatting, unless you're wearing a dress. So Issa and Kaylee, just so the people behind you can see the board, okay? Alright, thank you. Good job. So, Brittany is our leader this round. Let's see. Question 2. How many days does it take for the moon to fully orbit the Earth? 27 days. Good job. All right, now switch. Switch and squat. Let's see. A couple people moving around. How many times does the International Space Station orbit the Earth in one day? Shh, don't say it too loud. Miss Russians, do you mind pushing the buttons for me so I can walk around? Thank you. Alright. You guys are just swap. Okay. And hey guys, we'll push the next button when you're squatting. When everybody's squatting that's on the floor and you've already switched, and then the new person is squatting, okay? Thank you. Alright. See how the little good job. Alright, ready? Which of the following do satellites help us predict? This one kind of has a lot of answers, so make sure you read them all.
Wait, did it say you're on podium?
What'd you say? They're on what? I don't know. Alright, go ahead and switch.
Oh, you
already switched? You already switched? Okay. Go switch. Alright, remember we're not going to go to the next question until it's silent in the room. So we'll wait till it's silent. What word means the speed and direction of something? What word means the speed and direction of something? Good job. Velocity, that was that word we just talked about. The speed and direction. The perfect speed and direction is why we stay in orbit. All right, go ahead and switch. Okay, have you switched? Okay. I know you're excited. Oh, close. Very close. Yep. Right, remember guys, every time it's gotta be silent before we move on. Jacob, it's gotta be silent before we move on. Thank you. Alright. What are two objects that orbit the sun other than planets? Don't say it too loud. Nice. Good. Doing so good. Get that one? Yeah. Altoids, it's a mint. Altoids, not asteroids. Alright, make sure you guys are switching. Olivia, if you're jumping around, people behind you can't see, okay? Thank you. Alright, can you guys swap? Remember, I'll know you're ready if you're squatting and silent. Olivia, we don't need gymnastics. Thank you. Alright, what is the name of the galaxy we live in? Make sure you take your time to read all the answers, guys. Alright, Olivia, we're going to miss somebody. I can't have you doing that, okay? So, do you want to switch? Switch? No, it's not. I know that's why I said you got to calm down a little and read all of them, because I did some that are there to trick you, okay? Yeah. You're not living the Milky Way, it's the Milky Way. Alright, I'm waiting till it's silent. And everybody's squatting. Or if you're in a dress, I know. Lisa, thank you. I'm still waiting. Read all of the answers, because like that last one, a couple of you guys put either a Milky Day or a Minty Way. You probably knew the right answer, but I did a couple of those where I spelled them different, so you really have to pay attention. And I know you're... Yeah, I made this, so. Pay attention to the spelling and read all the answers before you just grab and pick one, okay? All right. True or false? Lighter objects tend to orbit heavier ones. So that is why we orbit the sun. It's the heaviest. Moving around. First place keeps moving up and down. Alright, make sure you switch. Switch and squat. Now, what is the heaviest object in our solar system? Very nice. You guys read all the answers? All right, switch and squat. Sounds like a workout squat. I'm walking around, so if you're walking around, right, let's put our mask. Hey, it's okay. You got it right? Good. Alright, remember how we're not starting until it's... What is the largest planet in the Milky Way? It was in the video. The sun is not a planet. Right.
It would have been the sun, but it's the largest
Planet, and the sun is not a planet. Yeah, I know.
I know, teacher.
I know. Yeah. All right, have we all have we all switched and squatted?
You should say Sasquatch.
I just say Sasquatch, that means switch and squat. All right. See if y'all do it right this time without having to say what I'm going to say. Here it is. How far away is the sun from the earth? We talked about this last week. Nice! You guys have been paying attention. Wow.
I wasn't even there.
You weren't even there and you knew? Wow. Good job. Right? Yeah, our leaderboard been saying the same. Oh, your rival? Oh, yeah. You're close. All right, has everybody switched? Squatted, Sasquatch. True or false? We are the third closest planet to the sun. We are Mercury, Venus, Earth. We are number 3. Did y'all switch? Did y'all switch? Don't switch, girls. Oh, I saw some movement that time.
Oh, good job.
Are you guys ready to move on? What do we do if we're ready to move on? Thank you. All right. Read the question and all the answers. What is the sun made of? We talked about this last week. This is a review question. See if you remember. Helium.
He wasn't even here when he did it.
That's okay. There's no time. Everyone's a winner.
You had to vote decide.
Cool. Yeah, you guys are all
You're a team. Teamwork. You win together and you miss some together. It's okay. You win together and you miss some together. Did you answer for him?
Did y'all switch
Then
already?
he needs to stay in the
I'll
seat.
switch.
I get it. I would do the same thing. It's part of being competitive, right?
I know it's hard.
It's hard sometimes.
Oh, the scoreboard's moving again. Y'all are all pretty close. Everybody on the scoreboard is close. So it's anybody's game.
Ready?
Yep. Ready? What is the name of the dwarf planet that orbits the sun? No. Alright, class. Alright, we're hearing a little bit of you guys kind of yelling the answers loud. I know you get excited and you're like, oh, it's Pluto. But remember, then everybody beside you can hear. So try and keep it quiet. There's only one more question, but you guys have done a good job. Is everybody swapped? Last question is kind of a bonus, I will say. Right, I know you're ready, Olivia, when you're not jumping and when you're sitting and squatting. Thank you, Selena, for raising. Selena, you can go get a hedgehog for you and Alethea, because you guys are all ready. You got your thumb up like you're ready to rock and roll. Did you guys already swap?
Yeah.
if you want to let him do it, that's fine. Thank you.
So I was like reading the question.
You can get one too, Alethea.
Okay, so I'm gonna
Quickly. Alright, and like I've always said, I'll know you're ready when you're squatting like Selena. If your partner is in the chair and you're squatting and you're ready to go. Now, I said this was a bonus, so see what it says. Who is the best student teacher of all time? Better get this right.
Miss Smith. Miss Smith.
Oh, yeah!
He's better in my head.
Alright, let's see the final results. Third place is Brittany. Second, Alethea. Runners up, Jart. Jart, let's see. Oh, yeah.
Sadie.
Good job. Alright, you guys did such a good job. Let's see, we're gonna leave them on because we have like five minutes left later. There's something else in the Okay, alright, give me 5 if you're listening to me. Thank you. Alright, since our computers didn't get plugged in last night, they're probably gonna die, so we are gonna have to plug them back in. But everybody freeze until I'm done talking, okay? Alright, if you have the computer, once I say to go, you're gonna sign out and put it back in, and I'll come back through and plug it back in. If you are the person that was squatting, or if you're not at your desk, you can walk back to your desk and get out your snack. We're gonna do snack next, okay? Alright, you can go. Is it upside down? Alright, so you go ahead and sign out, go put yours in, yeah, sign out, go put it back.
That was so good. That's my second time in the world.
There you go. Alright, and then yeah, just sign out and go put it up to Scott. Alright, thank you guys. Good job.